Good morning or good afternoon. I'm trying to make sure that we are here.
We are here.
All righty.
Hello, hello.
Yep.
All righty. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our weekly radio show, GA for Justice. And each week we try to bring you some interesting conversation, but educational conversations as well. GA for Justice was put together in order to open the eyes of our community with regards to the various issues that are taking place so that we can be armed and ready to go as it pertains to addressing concerns and issues. Today, of course, we have a fabulous guest, Miss Lola Truitt. Lola is someone from Williamsburg, Virginia, but we won't hold that against her. And
Mhm.
she relocated to our area and she started her own organization called, she's a community activist, and she has a group called the Queens of Mayat. And Lola got very interested in humanitarianism as a young person, giving back to her community. She also started studying African history, not African American history, but African history, which led her to her spiritual awakening in terms of African spirituality. And she studied using videos, also educating herself about the Black community, our history, and wanted to make herself most aware of who we are. And she even joined the Black Panther Party, where she got additional education with regards to our Black community. Ultimately, left that and just decided that she wanted to do some things, continue to do things within the community. And that's why she started the Queens of Mayat. With that being said, I want to welcome our guest today.
She's not here yet.
Okay.
Mhm.
Give me a thumbs up when she gets here.
I will.
But anyway, please. All right. But I do want to say that she is going to be talking today about true liberation for Africa. And what a time to talk about that. People are crying and boohooing with the loss of Queen Elizabeth. But there's a history with that. Just like there's a history with Patrick Henry, there's a history with George Washington, there's a history with Abraham Lincoln, and there are histories with even the guy that was right up the street in Charlottesville, Virginia, okay, that we attend his Sorensen Institute classes. But there is a rich history with regards to the Black community and the white community. And so we want to make sure that our young people are well aware of some of our history, and not just the part that gets sanitized, but the true history of our community. And so we have invited Lola because she wanted to share a lot of what she has learned. And I always like to give our young people an opportunity to explore, to educate, to share, and to make sure that they're welcome on our platforms, because what I have seen happening is, um, even though we say back in the day children were supposed to be seen and not heard, we still had conversations around the dinner table, because guess what? We actually had a dinner table. We had conversations in the morning at breakfast table, because we actually had a breakfast table. When we grew up, we all sat down together, and we didn't do the Pop Tart or the microwave. We literally had a full breakfast. Our mothers cooked the grits in the morning. Our mothers made the bacon and the eggs and the toast. And so we sat down, and our parents had conversations with us. Today, as children became latchkey kids, as things changed, as the environment changed, and all of these things started taking place, a lot of times there were not necessarily those families that had the dinner type time table talk. So when I see our young people, I want to hear what they have to say, because they know things that I don't know. And perhaps I can share with them things that I know that maybe they don't know. So when we're looking at history, and I'm not going to be able to do it justice. That's why I'm hoping that she's able to click on and be able to come online with us so that we can ask her some questions, but she can also share her knowledge with us and help us to know some of the things that maybe we as seniors or we that are headed toward our senior years uh, can be educated and enlightened. So we hope to be able to get her on shortly and be able to share, allow her the opportunity to share with us the things that she wants to share with regards to Pan Africanism, with regards to helping the African gain their liberations from the Europeans, and how do we truly liberate Africa. You probably heard on the news a number of different nations who have chosen from Africa who have chosen not to fly their flag at half staff because of the death of the Queen, who have chosen not to feel the need to praise or honor because they believe that they should be able to stand on their own 2 feet and not honor people that they feel may have caused them injustices. And while some people are like, oh, that's just terrible, we also have to recognize that this is a nation that was invaded. This is a nation that was um, much of what they had was stolen. This is a nation that their people were stolen, but also their jewels, their diamonds, the mines that they had were stolen. And even today, we see other nations trying to infiltrate into their nation and steal other natural resources. And so we want to make sure that they have a voice and that they have the opportunity to share with our nation and other nations how they feel, because they have a right to feel their injury, and they have a right to share the injuries that they have felt from those who have maybe done them harm. So, Mr. Henderson,
Yes.
as an educator, as someone who's been around a long time, I don't want to do all the talking.
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah. Well, they hit it on point. What they have on top of what they have on top of the Queen's coffin ceremony. They're displaying all the gold, all the diamonds they stole.
right,
From the mines.
right,
So when it comes to England, you know, uh, it takes a lot, to try to understand what every country is about. Even with the United States, we say they'll tell you that they broke. The United States is broke. They just borrowing money. Countries don't borrow money. They borrow money to keep from other countries for attacking them. So if you attack me, your economy is going down the drain.
right,
Because the United States is very rich, very, very. They're not in the trillions anymore. They in the zillions of dollars. It's on the internet. All you got to do is research. But
right,
what we do is we have to come together and educate our young people, because what is flipped the script, where the script has flipped that is because we'll talk about the police, but our kids, we're killing each other every day.
right.
So,
And we have to talk about both.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. We have to
We
talk
must
about
talk
both.
about both.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
have to talk about both. But what I'm saying is,
Mhm.
it's easier for me as your enemy to get your people to kill you than me, because it shines light. Because I'm coming in to rescue you now. I'm the rescuer.
Right,
If our people just understand, if you put the gun down and pick up that black book called the Bible, or pick up a history book
right,
and understand is we never did that.
right,
We never did that. And even doing slavery. If the overseer talk about he was gonna kill a slave, the master be like, yo, wait a minute, hold up, bro. I paid, that's my slave.
right.
I'll give you permission to whip him, but you ain't killing nothing that I own unless you got the money.
Right.
So we been through the struggle. We have to we have to keep looking for ways to unite. And the only way you can do that is get to those polls and elect. And I know Gayleen was on the news yesterday, on the internet as well, that they're not even publishing that we can vote early
Right.
next week. So these
Right.
things are important for people to know that they can
Well,
early voting registration, and get the young people out there to those polls and tell them to put the video game down for a minute.
exactly. And that's a major issue. I mean,
Yeah.
all the children have iPhones, iPads, iWatches. I'm like, wait a minute. And how much money do you have in the stock market for the iWatch, the iPhone, the
Yeah.
iPad? Now, how much money do you have? How much stock money do you have um in
It's
the system?
yeah,
You know,
it's
so
it's important for them to know that.
it is important for them to know and understand that um, when they're out buying all the Nikes, when they're out purchasing all of these things, some of which come from countries like Africa, and these people are making these shoes and these products at very minute wages.
Yeah.
And then they get back to America, and now America is charging our young people hundreds of dollars just for one pair of sneakers. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we must educate. And that's the whole reason why I really wanted to have this young lady on the show, is so that she can educate in areas that maybe I'm not as familiar with. I might know about it, but I might not have as deep of knowledge of what she is aware of. And so with that, we want to always be training. We're always in this game of life. This life has one final end game on earth. And while we're here, our responsibility is to continue to work while it's day, because night is coming. And that means we have to educate, we have to inform, and we have to make sure that we work. It's not enough to talk about it. A friend of mine, she says, don't get angry, take action. And so we're wasting a lot of time with a lot of anger. We're angry at our neighbors. We're angry because our children are not doing certain things. We're angry about all of these things. But all of these things, it's about taking action. And as we take action, we have different outcomes. So we're hoping that she will be able to click on shortly. Is she
Yeah.
here?
She's not here yet, but
Okay.
she's getting ready to come on.
All right. Okay. Just give me a thumbs up.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm excited about our guest. Again, her name is Lola Truitt, and she's someone who has been actively involved in the community. She's very focused on the African nation. She's focused on us, but she's also very focused on the African nation. She's always looking for ways to bring about changes that will help the next generation. While she's a young person, and sometimes I hate the word woke. While she's a young person, she's very knowledgeable, and we always want to give our young people an opportunity to share that knowledge with us. And then I want to encourage the older generations to be willing to listen. And we have this conversation all the time, Lola and I do, as well as some of the other young people that I talk with, meet with. We conversate all the time, and we tell each other we don't always agree on everything. I think sometimes because of how politics work, how we see folks in our local government work, we think that people should always agree on everything. And that's not the case. What should be happening is we should disagree, but we should not be disagreeable. We should be able to disagree, but that doesn't mean that we need to turn out the city council meeting, that we need to start, calling each other names and putting each other down. We saw a lot of that when COVID hit. Instead of our local government reaching out to the community to look for solutions, they were angry as to whether or not we should or should not wear a mask. That was not the total issue. The total issue is how do we keep people safe? And so why not look to the citizenry and say, hey, we're going to do a program, and we're going to give a prize to the person that comes up with some of the best ways that we can stay safe during this COVID and still try to keep our businesses open, look at ways that we can keep the economy going in our local cities and things of that nature. Instead, the most important thing to some of our elected officials was how loud can I be and how many names can I call somebody and how many websites can I get on and how much social media publicity can I get, and can I get on Fox News, can I get on MSNBC, can I get on all of these different networks, versus trying to have a better outcome. So with that being said, I believe that there should be true liberation for Africa. Keep in mind that millions of people were displaced to this nation. And so we have Lola, she's in the background, yes. And this is Lola Truitt, a mighty force. She is a mighty force, and we are excited. I think you have the wrong photo up. I think you got
Oh,
Keezy up today.
oh, okay.
Yes,
Well,
yes. I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, that's Kezia.
oh,
But both of them are very they're two strong young people.
uh,
And they are willing to fight on behalf of our community. And that's what I love about these young people. And I will tell you, you will see me always trying to find young people to be on this show, because I've heard a lot of what my age group has said. I've heard a lot about the the generation, the greatest generation ever, you know, and all. And so what we want to do is we want to hear from those generations that are coming behind us.
yes.
Are you able to put a photo up? Because you
Yeah,
had a beautiful photo
I know.
on the Facebook.
Yeah, I know. I'm just,
But that's okay. What we're
no,
gonna do is let's just bring her on, because she's
yeah,
always gorgeous anyway. So
yeah.
yeah,
I apologize because I thought I
that's okay.
hit the
That's
right
okay.
one.
That's the great thing about radio and live radio is we can have conversation as we're moving on to the next
Yeah,
item. So with that being said, we're gonna bring Lola on, and she's gonna share with us today about true liberation of Africa and the African nation and the African people. Hello, hello, Lola.
Hello, everyone. Grand Rising. I'm happy to be on your show again, Miss Georgia. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to have you. And I gave them a strong introduction. I even shared with them, and so did Henderson, about some of what is going on in Europe right now with the death of the Queen and the different African nations that have chosen not to fly their flag at half staff, and why that's important, and why they have a right to stand up and decide what they will do and what they won't. And so sometimes we think that we're supposed to cower down. So kind of share with us today, how can Africans get their liberation from the European powers?
Well, one, we all have to come to terms what the European nations such as Britain has truly done to African nation. We have to ask ourselves, how did they acquire this much wealth in only 400 years? How did they acquire this much wealth? It was because of the theft of land, minerals, and resources from our nations. It came through genocide. It came through them having war with our people and enslaving us. These are things we cannot overlook as a nation of people anymore. We cannot continue to let others browbeat us into submission anymore. I love what Malema said. He was over the EFF of South Africa, and he has said, we will not mourn such an evil person, which was Queen Elizabeth. She was evil as Hitler when it comes to the terms of African people. It's acknowledging what they've done and holding them responsible. In order for Africa to get their full liberation, we have to hold them accountable for what they've done, which means we also need to go ahead and start having a lot of their assets seized to be brought back to the homeland to be evaluated to see that they get that illegally or did they get it legal, because they have looted so much. That's where it starts, with holding them responsible for what they have looted from us. That's a part of it. And another part of how we can get our liberation is coming together as global Africa, as Marcus Garvey was talking about in the 1900s. Pan-Africanism is what is going to save our nation of people. It's global Africa speaking for one another and standing in solidarity against nations who have done so much evil to us, and taking responsibility for what we can fix on our own without them.
Absolutely. Now, please tell the listening audience what EFF is, because everybody doesn't have the same knowledge that you have. So when using acronyms, it's always a good idea to go ahead and say it, even if you feel like people may know it. Okay.
Okay, so one is for.
I'm going to turn off my mic because I'm not sure if you're getting feedback.
Do you hear me?
I was not able to. For some reason, we're getting some type of feedback. I'm not sure. I guess your topic and your message is so strong that the evil has decided to take to get involved and try to prevent you from sharing your knowledge.
Hold on, let's put some headphones. Do you hear the echo now?
I don't hear the echo now. No.
Okay, so EFF stands for Economic Freedom Fighters. It's a political party in South Africa. The Economic Freedom Fighters is a South African left wing to far right Pan Africanist political party. It was founded by an expelled former African National Congress Youth League President Julius Malema, and that came in 2013. It was founded in Johannesburg of South Africa on July 26 of 2013. So he erected that political party to start holding white South Africans. I don't even want to call them Africans, but anyway, you're Dutch people living in South Africa responsible for the apartheid crimes, how they were seizing land. Do you remember how a lot of black South Africans were murdering the Dutch people that were on their land that they stole? He also was a part of trying to bring those people to terms with what their ancestors did and to get them to go back to the Netherlands where they belong. They don't belong on the continent. They always talk about how bad Africa is, but yet they want to stay there on land that does not belong to them. If Africa is so bad, as these white South Africans were saying, Dutch people that are there were saying, they would have went back to the Netherlands, but they don't have nothing in the Netherlands, so they stayed on land that is not theirs, and that's what led to the killings. They were trying to do a documentary on the BCC network talking about Africans killing white people in South Africa, hate crimes. But they don't talk if they, oh my gosh, let me just pick words. There's so much I want to say.
I
They may try to make it like they were victims. They're not victims. These
Right.
people are living on stolen land that they
I
refused to
understand.
leave from, stolen farmland.
Right.
And when they asked, well, why don't you just go back to the Netherlands? They said, this is our home here, and our ancestors been on this land for eons. No, y'all have not.
Right. You came there, you stole the land, and now you want to live on land that does not belong to you.
Yes,
And,
so
and,
that's
and
what,
use up the resources that don't belong to you either.
right. And they didn't want to talk about the dire poverty they're living in. If you're living in that much poverty, go back to
Go
the
home.
Netherlands.
Right. Go back.
Right. Go back to where you come from. We don't have
Right.
sympathy for what was
Right.
stolen. And that's what Malema was talking on too, about how many European people there are occupying their country, disrespecting the natives, and not wanting to return the land that belongs to them and the resources.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, you had a white Dutch pastor from South Africa who was trying to poison the water supply to kill African people in South Africa. And he was trying to also bring back the apartheid system, but he was stopped by the justice system of South Africa. He was arrested and charged with treason. So a lot of Africans are waking up realizing all these people there, after the apartheid ended, European people should have been forced to go back to their homeland. But after the apartheid ended, they called everything treason and let them stay. That was the worst mistake of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And most people here in America don't know what the apartheid was. The apartheid was equivalent to Jim Crow and to segregation that we had here in America.
Right.
There was different parts of Africa that Black Africans could not go. There was beaches that they could not go, which just was for white people that were staying there. If they were caught in different parts of Johannesburg, after a certain time, they could be killed. So the apartheid really was the equivalent to how African Americans were living here in America.
Exactly.
And the Royal Crown never once even apologized for the apartheid. So when people ask, why aren't Africans mourning for the Queen, think about how would you feel if, imagine this, imagine if your mother was murdered. And instead of having a proper funeral for your mother, her body was put on a display in a museum. How would you feel? And people are looking at her and her death in shame, and you're not able to bury her. They did that too. They start putting African people in zoos on display, whether they were dead or alive, so people can just come look. These are the things that nobody in Britain wants to talk about. Why there's so much hurt that comes from the African nation. A lot of Black people think they've suffered here. Africans have suffered on the motherland for going on 400 years now, and we're tired. And that's why we're calling. Yes, and longer. You're right, longer.
Yeah, because when you think about, removing, people from their native land and having someone else to literally come over, invaders, and decide that everything that's in this native land that is of real value, including the people, they want to own it, take it, and everything. It's horrible. Just the thought of it is horrible. Those of us who are of African descent that are living here, we were moved onto another land that they didn't own, but they decided to take over. But it is tragic that they literally own the land, and then other people decided that they're going to come and be more powerful than you are on your own land, that they're going to control more stuff than you control on your own land. So that's a horrific thing to even think about, much less live through.
I agree 100%. And they were kind of like, the colonizers were like vampires. And what do I mean by that? I don't know how much folklore of vampires you know about, but in order for a vampire to enter your home, you have to invite them in order for them to have access to your home. So when Europeans came, they came through the fake guises of Christianity. They came there trying to bring food, toys for the children, try to bring African things they never saw before. So a lot of Africans were kind of curious, because they never saw white people before, so they trusted them. They allowed them to come have festival time with them, have dinners with them, let them play with their children. They entertained them. Some of them even let them take wives, right? When they
Right.
came,
Mm.
just to show that we were peaceful, loving people.
Hmm.
Later, that came to be our weakness. They used our weakness of love against us, and that's how Africa was colonized,
Right.
through our naiveness.
I have another question. How can
Mhm.
we help with the education of true African history and not the fake African history? How can we help with the education of true African history? What are the things that we need to be doing?
I am so grateful you asked that. By educating yourself and re educating your children and other people in your family around you. It was back in 2014 that I started this journey of learning about Africa and my homeland and what it meant to be an African American. And then I was able to teach my children the history. And now I just have a lifelong love of Africa, the culture, the stories, and the people, and it stays with you.
When you educated your children about true history, what type of reaction did they have, and what have they shared with you by having the knowledge that they didn't originally have? How have they reacted, and what have they shared with you?
Okay, well, the first part of history I shared was about the royalty of Africa. So they were excited. I saw my daughter's face glow up when they found out who Queen Nyangi was and who Queen Candice was. When they started finding out that you had queens of Africa that ruled lands, they were very excited to know that history. And then I gently start to break in the evils of colonization. And then they were very sad. My daughter, Naomi, took it the hardest because she's a very gentle child. And she looked at me and said, Mom, how could they hate us so much to do this when we shared so much with them? So they were sad. And I told them it's okay to be sad, but just know that by learning the history, you can help bring justice and liberation to the people by telling your story. So now Naomi, when she heard in school during COVID, they kept talking about Harriet Tubman, right?
Right.
They were just they all they want to talk about is Harriet Tubman. Naomi was like telling them that Harriet Tubman not only liberated slaves, but she also was a spy during the Civil War. And her teacher didn't know that.
Right.
So Naomi was able to talk about Harriet Tubman and hold a very beautiful discussion on who she really was and what she truly stands for.
Hmm.
Then in another time, the teacher kept talking about Rosa Parks, because that's all they talk about here in America. And Neil said Rosa Parks wasn't old when she was sitting on a bus. She was an activist that refused to give up her chair to a white person. Why do you keep trying to make it like she was an elderly person? Her,
Right.
her teacher said, Miss Jessup, I understand that y'all are a very pro-black family, but she can't keep having these outbursts. I said, if you're going to tell the story, get it right.
Mhm.
Naomi has a lot of me in her. So I was proud of her that day. I had to go get her some ice cream that day. I said, you tell it like it is.
Right. And that's the thing about our children. When we properly educate them, they become bolder and they have more confidence. And so when I ask that question, um, about helping and then outcomes, I'm always interested in, you and I have these conversations all the time. I'm always interested in results. And what I hear from you is that you empowered your daughter with boldness, with confidence, and a belief in herself and who she is and her history, that is no longer, where she no longer have to feel inferior. And so that's powerful what you did.
Yes. And that was really important for me to best, especially being Black women, I want them to know about their divinity. Then I start teaching about ancient Kemet and the laws of Ma'at. I start teaching them about African spirituality. I start teaching them about how beautiful our own spiritual principles are and how all European spiritual principles came from our African principles. Even the Hebrew Israelites, a lot of those same spiritual principles came from Kemet and Nubia and Cush. The Greeks and Romans adopted a lot of African spirituality. That's how they erected Aphrodite. That's how they start coming up with Poseidon. I'm not trying to get too much off topic, but right now everyone's angry that the Little Mermaid is Black, right? But they never heard of Mama Wata. That is a West African female deity that was the mother of the water. Mama, some people call her Mama Yamaya. And that was a water fertility goddess. Then you have Papa Wata. That's where they got the concept of Poseidon from. White people are angry because for so many years, they always thought everything was in their image. God was in their image. Every hero was in their image. Now that the narrative being put back to where it belongs, they can't handle it.
Absolutely. And see, this is so important. It's not only important for young people, but it's important for people in my age group as well. And listening to you continues to open my eyes. And that's the thing that I hope that our seniors get out of this program today is go back and talk to our young people, but more importantly, listen to our young people, because sometimes we talk, but we don't necessarily listen. And so I'm hoping that
I
those
love
who are
you.
listening now, who may listen later, that you will share this information with others. Please share the video. Again, today we have a very special guest, Lola Truitt. Lola is here to share true liberation for Africa. And um, it was something that she wanted to share because of the death of the queen. And people were getting confused about the fact that many African nations did not feel the need to honor and worship her in her death because they felt like they were never being honored and worshiped and treated fairly during her lifetime. So when people say, "Oh, that's just awful," oh my God, I can't believe that they're saying these horrible things. Remember all the horrific things that happened to the African nations, not for one generation, not two generations, but for hundreds of generations. And so if
Mhm.
we're pushing back in 2022, understand why. Now, my next question is, what will we gain from the liberty of African nations? What is going to be the gain from that?
All right, that's a beautiful question. What will we gain is our very own economics, our own economy. A lot of people don't know that Gaddafi was trying to come up with his own bank and currency. In 2013, he was trying to launch the first African gold backed coins that every nation would have to buy in order to buy and trade with Africa. That's why he was immediately assassinated by the
During the
United
Obama
States.
administration, he was assassinated
Yep,
by our government
yep.
during the
And
period
also,
of time when there was an African American in the White House. So
thank
Gaddafi
you.
was, yes, and so we
Yes.
we we need to say it loud and clear. Uh,
Okay. So
and
you
we don't need to bite our tongue. Just say during the period of time that President Obama was in office, that Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated. So,
yes, and it was
and
by
that
the
was when he
French.
was trying to get his own monetary system. And so, share with us the importance of Africans having their own monetary system and not using the systems of all of these European nations and money that has the faces of queens and kings and other uh, European leaders on it, because I know when I lived in Belgium,
Mm,
I picked up we had to of course have foreign exchange, so you go and you have your American dollars and you have to use the foreign exchange system to change it to the euro, and all faces were all over it, just like faces are on our money as well, and faces were
mhm.
all over the money, mostly kings, queens, etc. So share with the audience a little more about how that negatively impacted the Black community.
Well, one, think about it. When you see George Washington, Abraham Lincoln on money, Benjamin Franklin on $100 bill, a lot of people hold these pieces of paper in high regard because of what it stood for. Just like when you see the Queen's face on a lot of money that was in the Caribbeans, they were erecting their power over the people, saying that our money is more valuable than anybody else's. Everyone runs after their dollars because they see a lot of worth in white money. If Black people were to have their own banking system and they start to print money with their people on it that they hold in high regard and respect, everybody in the world would want African currency. Everybody would. African currency have enough power to take over the whole economy and restructure it that will be on top. That's what they're trying to prevent. Think about all the diamonds and gold that Kenya has. Think about all the gold that Nigeria has. Think about all these precious metals that Africa has. We have the gold to back our own currency and money, and it's time for us to start coming up with our own banking system where Black people here in America have the chance to start buying into these stocks within Africa. And then through that, we'll start having more financial liberation. That's what would happen if Africa was to start having their own banking system and broke away from European banking system. They could have their own nation without any Europeans being involved in how they trade.
Yes, I just wanted to jump here for a minute because
All
of
right.
for the economic
Oh,
for the economical part, because everything that we get today comes out of Africa. All
right.
the minerals that what they need for the cars, for the electric cars, come out of Africa. The televisions, all that mineral, all that comes out of Africa. And that's why the Chinese is also trying to go in and marry African women to take over the country, because they have land that's dedicated to, they're going over there, and really the basis is Africa is the motherland of all creation, and our minerals, and like she said, Gaddafi and all that stuff, he was killed for that, for those reasons, because he was going to give free internet and restructure the banking system so that people would be able to do business in Africa. So she's on the right
All
track.
right. See
So
there? See how important it is to have our young people up here on our show, because see, there are a lot of shows out here, radio, television, sharing information. But what I like about this show is it's a weekly conversation for information, a weekly conversation for corrections, and a weekly conversation for transformation. So having people of different ages, people with different backgrounds, we're always looking to help educate our community for the ultimate goal of transforming the way we do things and the way we think. So Lola, it's always a pleasure to have you up here to just share. And I love what you were sharing about if we had our own monetary system, what an impact that would have on us as a people, but the impact that it would have globally as well, because we have the diamonds, we have the oil, we have the gold, and all the different mines that has uh, much wealth. And we just need to move those Europeans out of Africa. But we also need to make sure that we don't let others in, because there are, like you were sharing earlier, there are others who are trying to come in and do similar to what Europeans did, which was, let me be nice to you, let me be sweet, I'm your friend. And the whole time that they're hugging you, they're okay with one hand, their other hand is in your pocket, pulling all your money, resources, and value out.
Yes, 100%. They're stabbing you with one hand and smiling in your face. And that's exactly what happened. One more thing I want to say too was a story they recently shared about King Badu.
Mm-hmm.
He was a African chief, and what they did was he was telling them he didn't want to have a war with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the British came and they said, okay, well, we can have a meeting on peace.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up with 5 men that was his guards. They
Right.
showed up with 95
Mm-hmm.
soldiers, and they entrapped him. Not only did they entrap him, they also beheaded him. A
Mm-hmm.
doctor came and took his head back, put it in a jar, and for years it was in a museum in Europe. And they've been for the last 100 years trying to get the king's head back from them, and they refused to give it back.
Just horrific. That is absolutely horrific. My last question, and then I'm gonna let you do your closing comments. My last question is why Pan-Africanism, how Pan-Africanism is going to benefit the Black global community. Share with us how that is going to benefit the Black global community. And that's all our islands, that's Africa, that's Black people living in all these nations, including the United States of America. So share that with us.
Well, one, let's break down what the word Pan African means.
Mm-hmm.
Pan Africanism is the idea that people of African descent have common interests and should be unified. Historically, Pan Africanism has often taken the shape of political or a cultural movement.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Garvey was one of the founding fathers of Pan Africanism, and he had did something that has not been able to be recopied till this day. He had a large change of goods coming in America for the African diaspora here. We were making trades in Africa. People were getting goods from Africa. He had a boat coming here with those goods, and he was redistributing them to our people. Because during the 1919, that was the Red Summer. You had a lot of Black soldiers coming home, couldn't get jobs. They
Mm-hmm.
were still lynching them, beating them. Some of the most worst lynchings happened in 1919.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus Garvey saw how African Americans were being treated. So he said, why don't we unify
Mm-hmm.
Black people in the islands, in Haiti, in Jamaica, in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, and let all of us come together and speak with one voice, with one mind. This is what Pan Africanism really means, for us to stand together, not only with just our words, but also with our economics. Look at all the cities that we were able to build during the 1920s and 30s. After one was burned down after another, we still were able to build. It was the unity that was able to build these towns. Wilmington was one of, and Chicago and many other Black cities were destroyed
Mm-hmm.
because of the unity with our people. When Black people come together, we get stuff done.
Absolutely.
And that's what they
Absolutely.
fear. That's what Pan Africanism means. And that's why I am Black and I'm proud. And I'm a proud Pan Africanist. I love my people as much as I love myself.
Wonderful. Well, we're coming to the close of the show. So, what are your final remarks? I love what you shared with us. It's about unity. And that's one of the things that I preach about pretty much every week when I'm on the air. I try my best to help our community to understand that if we have been doing these same things all of these years here in America and it has not worked for us, maybe we should try something different. Maybe we should go back to Marcus Garvey and do what Marcus Garvey taught and implement it, take the action that's necessary, and then follow the process and share that process from neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city, state to state, and all around our nation, and ultimately around the globe. So, with that being said, I am so proud to have had you on my show. And it's not my show, it's our show. It's the community show. It's the family show. It is the Black people show. It is the show that actually speak to a lot of the issues that others are afraid to talk about because, they may get shunned. Well, guess what? I'm a senior citizen and I don't know when my clock is going to stop ticking. But until it stops ticking, I'm going to fight for my Black people. So, with that being
Black
said,
power.
I turn it back over to you. I'm excited that you're here with me today. And thank you so much. So, your comments, your final comments, please.
My final comments for the show is that Black people have so much economic power that we're not using. We
Okay.
need to get rid of the mindset that says, I can't do something because white people won't let me. We have to get rid of this defeated mindset. So when now I hear Black people saying, well, they won't let us, who won't let you? Who's not letting you go out here and create your own schools for your children? Who's stopping you from building your own hospitals? We need to start asking these questions so we can fully be liberated, not only physically, but mentally. We're still mentally enslaved. And that's why I'm putting this knowledge out here so that our people can have generational wealth for our children's children and beyond. Thank you for having me on the show. It's a great honor to be here with you. Peace, love, and Black power.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're listening now or listening later, you have just heard from the activist Lola Truitt, who is in love with who she is. She's in love with being a Black American, a Black African. And today's topic was true liberation for Africa. Because guess what? True liberation for Africa is true liberation for all of us who are from the African diaspora. So I'm so excited. We're going to play this more than one time, I'm sure, because this was absolutely what our community needs to hear, need to know. I want to reach out and say thank you to those who were listening right now: Teresa, Joan, Rod, and many others that I too many for me to name. But Teresa and Rod tend to listen almost every single week, so they are regular listeners. Thank you so much for just plugging in. And Joanne, I don't know if this is their first time listening, but your message, we need to know the truth about our history. Well, guess what? You just got a sample today. We're going to have Lola back to share more with you and talk about our kings and our queens and those who were in charge and those who are no longer with us, our ancestors, so that she can help us as our children are going to school. They can have that confidence. They can walk in there feeling great about who they are and being bold, because we need our young people to be bold. They don't have to be mean. They don't have to be nasty, but there's nothing wrong with being bold and letting folks know that we know who we are, and we will no longer uh, live in a society that don't want to tell us the truth. Because guess what? Mom and dad are telling us the truth. Our neighbors are telling us the truth. We're learning from each other, and we're now spreading that information. We're going back to the old days where Big Mama sat in the middle of the floor with this big old dress on that reached out so far, was almost like a nice rug. And all the children sat around her, and she told them the stories, and she repeated those stories over and over again so that they learn who we are. And so we're going to have to go back to some of those some of those ways of teaching and learning, and picking up the phone and calling each other and say, hey, let's get together. We have done too many things as individual. It is now our responsibility to come together as a collective. and collaborate, so that when you listen to the show each week, you're talking to people who love each other and who want to see the best of the best out of each other. Um, Again, Lola, thank you so much for being here this afternoon.
Thank
I
you.
always talk about politics, and politics in more of a I won't say benign, but nonpartisan way. In that it is an election year in Virginia. If you live in Virginia, elections every single solitary year. So I always like to remind people the first day for in-person voting is 9/23/2022. So what is that, next week? And we want you to get out there and vote. And the reason why I push voting so much, if voting wasn't important, if voting didn't mean something, they would have everybody black voting. But the mere fact that they constantly come up with reasons for us not to vote, they constantly come up with obstructions to prevent us from voting, then somewhere along the line, the with us voting has become a detriment to them. We just need to know how to not only vote, but to lobby as well. I have a quote: "They lobby, we vote," and I believe that we should not only lobby and vote. We should not only just vote, but we should vote and we should lobby too. It is important that we make demands. It's important that we set expectations. When we do those things, when we set our values and put our values, our principles, our standards front and center, when we make demands, when we make sure that we know that our currency, the value that we have, that's our proxy to make changes in this world. Election day, of course, is November the 8th, 2022. The deadline for registering to vote is October the 17th, 2022. And if you want to apply for absentee ballot, you can do that by the last day to apply, I'm sorry, is 10/28/2022. So you want to make sure you keep up with these dates. You want to make sure that you vote. I serve on a committee right now that I am interviewing potential candidates to serve on both school board and city council. And let me tell you, I am not giving any of them a free ride, even if we've endorsed them in the past, and I didn't, because I wasn't doing the interviews. But even if some of these people were endorsed in the past, they are going to be held accountable. Demands will be made of them, so they don't just go there and sit and do nothing. So with that said, Henderson, we're looking for you to close us out. Thank you so much. Lola, thank you. And everybody have a great day. This is GA for Justice, always every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, you've been listening and watching GA for Justice with Georgia Allen, the former president of the NAACP in Virginia Beach, and her guest. Want you to let you know that this is always up. It's on links. It's on Facebook. It's on several platforms. YouTube and hopefully and Twitter. So it's on 3 or 4 platforms, so that we can get the word out and let people know that this is a community a service program. Georgia was gracious enough to take this time slot to bring on information that I don't know. I tell people, I don't know everything, but I do know people that do know more than I know. So thank you again. And don't forget, you've been watching GA for Justice with the former president of the NAACP of Virginia Beach, Miss Georgia Allen. Until next week at this time, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Mm.